Have you ever been puzzled by a piece of code and wondered what it really means? If you're diving into Kotlin and asking about indices, you're in the right place. Today, we will unravel the mystery behind this term and explore its practical applications. I totally get it. Understanding how different loops work in Kotlin can be confusing, especially when you're trying to optimize your code. You're not alone in this. Many developers face similar questions when learning new programming languages. Let's dive into the specific question at hand. One user asked, what does indices mean in Kotlin, and how does it differ from a standard for loop? They provided two examples of loops, and we're going to break those down together. So what exactly is indices? In Kotlin, indices is a property that returns the range of valid indices for an array or a collection. This means you can loop through the indices of an array without worrying about going out of bounds. Let's look at the examples to clarify this. And stick around. At the end of this video, I will share a handy tip that will make your Kotlin coding even smoother. To understand the meaning of indices in Kotlin, let's start with the first loop example. In this loop, the user iterates directly over the elements in the array using the variable arg. This is a straightforward way to access each element. Now let's look at the second loop. Here, the user uses args.indices to iterate over the indices of the array. This means the user accesses each element by its index, which can be useful when the index is needed for additional logic. The main difference between these two loops is how they access the elements. The first loop is simpler and more readable, while the second loop provides more control by allowing the user to work with indices. Next, let's discuss the withIndex function. This function allows the user to iterate over both the index and the value of each element in the array simultaneously, which can be very convenient. In summary, the user can choose between these methods based on their needs. The first loop is great for simplicity, the second for index-based access, and withIndex for accessing both index and value together. Fun fact, did you know that Kotlin was designed to be fully interoperable with Java? This means you can easily use Kotlin alongside your existing Java code. How cool is that? Now let's look at the answers provided by other users. According to another user, the indices property in Kotlin provides the index values from a list. It returns an int range of valid indices for that collection. Let's move forward and look at another answer. This user explains that the indices property in Kotlin returns an int range, which represents the range of valid indices for a collection. For example, if you have an array, indices will give you the range from the first to the last index. They also point out that both for loops in the question achieve the same result, but the second loop using indices does not create an iterator object, making it potentially more efficient. Finally, the user encourages checking out the useful methods of int range for more functionality. Let's check out another perspective from a different user. This user shares an alternative approach to iterating through a collection in Kotlin. They initially used a traditional for loop with an index, but Android Studio suggested using indices instead. This allows them to access each item in the collection while simplifying the code. Here's the tip I promised. Always choose the loop that best fits your needs. If you only need values, go for the first loop. If you need indices, use indices or withIndex for cleaner code. And there you have it. Now you understand what indices means in Kotlin and how to use it effectively. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to subscribe for more coding tips and tricks. Happy coding!